of 2017. I have copied anything that is not in quotes as an italicized was my addition. Anything in regular font has been taken directly from your code book, and they're all in sequential order of the building codes and subdivision laws for you to follow along as easily as to my points. In section 17.360 under screening and fencing, D, buffering screenings were required. 1, buffer impact screens shall be provided between developments of differing land uses adjoining one another and shall comply with section 17.360G except as follows. I'm going to kind of rush, I'm going to assume you guys have read this, but I want to point out a couple of them. On section, same D2, buffer screens where required. If a single-family division is approved or built adjacent to a previously approved or built but separate single-family subdivision, and the difference in the average minimum lot size between the two subdivisions is 120% or more, the subsequently approved or built subdivision shall contain a buffer impact screen along the periphery adjacent to the previously approved or built subdivision. A medium impact screen in accordance with 17.360G shall be provided unless such buffer impact screen requirements are modified through increased or decreased requirements or waived entirely by the Planning Commission and City Council. In section F, a buffer screen required by this section shall meet the following criteria: on the side lot 20 feet, on the rear lot 20 feet. In the approved plat, there is a depiction of a 20-foot tree preservation. It has a dashed line as any other preservation or any other easement would have, and it is called a 20%, it says on the plat map for Village on Victory 4 that there's a tree preservation easement of 20 feet, which would match what I interpreted, seeing that was the buffer. The 20 feet equaled the buffer as described in the minimum lots, buffer screen requirements. So on page 3 at the top, again, reviewing the differences between our two adjacent properties. The Dunn Addition approved plat was in 1972. The Village on Victory approved plat was in 2017, with a 20-foot tree preservation easement between our adjoining properties. 3 lots in Dunn Division are adjacent to 13 lots in Village on Victory 4 along rear lot lines. The 2 subdivisions are dissimilar in character. We can have chickens, we can ride ATVs, we have a pond, we can build barns. We enjoy our property and the privacy of it in its open landscape with a complete tree line. In the past, a complete tree line was the joy and the reason we bought this property in this lot, knowing that the tree preservation line and the trees were in the plots for 3 as well as 4, and that preservation would continue. So we do use our property differently by size. I have 2.1 acres myself. My neighbors are about the same. And by definition, we're also zoned, we're actually zoned as a countryside district, according to the Miami County Code. I have the definition here. I don't know, do you want me to read it, or are you familiar with it? It was an agricultural preservation district originally. Minimum buffer screen requirements. I'm at the bottom of page 3. Every buffer required by the section in maintenance. Every buffer required by this section shall be maintained by the owner of the property where the buffer is located, in order to provide the visual screen at the opacity identified on a year-round basis. Should the buffer not be installed, maintained, and replaced as needed to comply with the approved plan, the owner and his agents or agents shall be considered in violation in terms of the building or occupancy permit. The building inspector is a designee is empowered to enforce the terms of the code. And then I skipped it, but it's supposed to have the opacity to reach its opacity for a minimum or a medium within a 2-year growing period. I'm going to top of page 4. By definition, ours is a medium impact screening, where 70% semi-opaque screen between land uses. which are dissimilar in character. Semi-opaque screening should partially block views from adjoining land uses and create separation between adjoining land uses. For medium impact screening, either a landscape screen, fencing are required. A medium impact landscape must meet the following screening options, and then there's like 3 examples of all the kinds of trees and how far they have to be apart in order to get to a 70% opaque. And I think, we knew this. I mean, we knew the subdivision was coming. We thought the 20-foot tree easement would be maintained. And even though that's less than 70% in the winter, because the leaves fall off hedge trees, we were okay with that. But medium impact screening really is 70% opaque all year round in a buffer zone between adjoining properties of different cases and different uses. Top of page 9, this is what we bought when we bought our property in 2014. We bought tree lines, we bought privacy, we bought peace and peace of mind in Spring Hill. This is my 3rd home in Spring Hill. I've lived here over 30 years. I have bought my first house butted up to a hedge tree line. None of my neighbors ever touched that tree line. We didn't. You respected hedge tree lines in farmlands in Spring Hill for 30 years. 2020, that's a view from my back deck in 2016. The second picture is the view from my back deck now. My first phone call to the city was in 2018 when the developer was bulldozing down the tree line within feet of the hedgerow. He never takes out the hedgerow. He doesn't take out the fencing. He goes all the way up to it and takes away the 20 feet in that. It doesn't matter what size trees they are, they're gone. When I first called in 2018, I was told that if the tree was greater than 4 inches in diameter, he wasn't allowed to move it. I don't know what happened. I've checked the website. There's never been any, you have an appeals board? No one's appealed to change that 20-foot tree preservation easement. I understand, you may not have a definition for that, but I think 20 feet, dotted lines on that plat map, coming out 20 feet. And I want to go back to that one picture. I'm sorry when I pointed out, and I didn't, I meant to. On the top of page 6, you can see that this was taken from my Miami County Beacon land aerial survey. And our lot, I'm sorry, the pink, I didn't describe it. The pink is Dunn Division, or Dunn Addition, and Victory and Village is on the top. When those houses were start being built, you could see the preservation of the 20-foot line in the first 3 homes. The preservation of those trees were there when we started. So I thought we were going to be okay. We're not okay. We're not. So I'm asking, for as an ongoing concern, that as new homeowners are obtaining fence permits and removing trees extending beyond existing tree easements, they're taking down the barbed wire fence that the developer didn't even try to do, and they're going past whatever tree preservation they believe is with their property line. We have an issue with it. I know, somebody following me speak to that. And so I'm here to ask you if there's been any modifications to the buffer area that has been approved for this subdivision that has been, do you agree that we have 2 different property uses? We all have close to 2 acres. We use our property differently. We had our sump pumps, our septic tanks all pumped this week. We use our land differently. And they are of different character and size, greater than 120%. So I'm here to ask questions, has there been any zoning appeals that changed that plat? Has there been any appeals that have been approved that would modify or eliminate the buffer zone as depicted in your own regulations? I looked through your Board of Appeals. I haven't seen anything. None of us have ever been notified of this change. And that's what my concern is. Is that it? Just comment and I leave? I've
No.
done this
as
before.
Yeah, as far as we know, nothing has come across the board here to change anything on those plots. Mr. Burton, has anything come through for the village and that tree line? Has anything changed that we know of?
I can answer the question is no, I have not seen anything. Unfortunately, some of this becomes core request, which, we met with some of the individuals today, but as far as I know, there has nothing come across.
Okay.
It's my understanding that if a lot or a subdivision and anything would change, where these building codes would not be in effect, we would be notified. Is that correct? And that there would go to a Board of Appeals, or would we be notified?
It depends on what the change is. You do not have to be notified by it, but if they were changing a preliminary plat or something like that, yes. A final plat is not notification for any area landowners adjacent to it.
Yes, but anything after that? And it affected our property line, or we wouldn't be notified?
Well, your property line and yeah, so that's, as soon as that gets resolved, there can be more answers to the questions.
Okay,
But first, we have to, right now, and like I said today, is we would be jumping to conclusions. And unfortunately, some of this, to be real honest, to give a real quick perspective of this is nowhere in any of our regulations and all spell out a tree preservation or any type of easement like that. So by doing that, it's a mute purpose because we have no regulations on that. And, we can let them go ahead and finish and I
that's
can
okay.
do some commenting at that time, if you'd like.
I would, could you explain why we're not qualified for a medium impact screening in your building code with the variations in use between our two subdivisions that we have predated?
Okay, so one I can. One, if you look at your plat, and the county is responsible to review the plat before recording and all. It does say that all that property is unplatted. So if it was unplatted and it meets and bounds descriptions, it's not a subdivision. So in us looking at it, it's unplatted property, meets and bounds, and then, do you see what I'm saying? It says subdivision to subdivision. And then it also says, though, like use. Now, depending on how you want to interpret like use, you're all residents. You're all single-family residential in there. But the main problem that is right off the bat is we look at that, we did not realize that's platted. I say we, the city, did not realize that was platted property. And nowhere in the comments from the county was it addressed to us. So,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Mrs. George, I do have a question if I can real quick. When you called in 2018, do you remember who you spoke with? Because that might have, and you may not, that's a long time ago. I don't remember.
I'm looking for the names. Did you come out?
Not at 2018.
Yeah, not.
Okay. I don't recall then.
That's okay.
But he came right out. I came out, I talked to the
I just didn't.
planning and development person, and he came right out, and the guy stopped bulldozing and, and
I just didn't know if it was like a building inspector or
I believe so.
city administrator or.
We started talking to my neighbors about perhaps he would know, because he said, oh yes, I've talked to him a couple of times, and I don't remember his name,
Because sometimes historical names can help
oh,
enlighten.
okay. I only remember because I took a picture of the bulldozer, and it was dated March
I'm not
18th,
laughing at you, I'm laughing. with-
2018.
laughing.
You know, so I know exactly, it was 2 weeks, you know,
Yeah, that's how I operate.
3 years ago.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chad Johnson.
Hello, my name is Chad Johnson. I own the adjoining property to Carroll. And I came here to talk about the Dunn's addition. Back in 2015, me and my wife bought what we thought was our dream home that backs up to this beautiful hedgerow, green space. You can't see anything past this. And over the past year, it's been absolutely decimated by the developer, the builder, and now the residents that are living there. And in looking at that plat that was brought up in 2017, it clearly shows the 20-foot tree preservation. And I had a discussion with Mr. Burton earlier today about that 20-foot preservation. And therein lies the problem. There's no definition of what that preservation is. So my question is, if a plat was approved by the city, and there's no definition, and there's clearly marked 20-foot preservation, there's no definition of what that is, what does that mean? How is it to be honored? And what would I take, and what would the normal, common person take that to mean? To me, a preservation is something that remains untouched, it's not tore down, it's there to preserve it in its original state. And if I may approach, I didn't make copies, but I've got a folder of the property that I bought in the beginning, and it ends with how it looks today, and it's a completely separate property. It looks like I am living in the middle of a subdivision. Please disregard the pictures of the kids. There is an ongoing dispute with where the exact property line is, on whether that's 2, 3, or 4 feet south of the hedgerow, which would be toward my home, or if it's the hedgerow itself. And so what I would say is, 100 years ago when those trees were planted, the reason why those trees were planted was to separate the two properties, because they didn't put fences all the way through like that. Not only is there a hedgerow there, there's also a combination of a wire and a barbed wire fence that has been there for I don't know how long, decades. And all of that has been torn out. So, we had a survey done today, and I'm confident that survey is going to contradict the other survey that's done. But we also have our original plats, which I'm finding that plats supersede surveys. So I'm just here to make this issue known to you guys. It's impacting our lives heavily. We're no longer enjoying our property anymore. So I lived here for 13 years, and this is where I wanted to raise my family, where I wanted to retire, raise my kids, and I just don't understand what's happened here.
Thank you, Chad. I'll continue passing these on to the rest of the board.
You can keep those photos if you'd like.
Let them take a look at the pictures if there's any other
Sure.
questions.
Could you give us an estimate of how much of the tree buffer exists compared to what it was when you first moved in? I mean, is half of it still there? Is 20% left? Yeah, it doesn't look.
10%.
Okay.
That buffer zone was layers upon layers upon layers of vegetation. I couldn't see to the north of me. And now I have a scarcity of a one hedgerow or one hedge tree here and one hedge tree there. Over the past 2 weekends, somewhere between 10 and 15 huge 50-foot mature hedgerows have been chopped down right on my property. And there's nobody there to stop it, nobody to say you can't do that. And that in and of itself, the homeowners to the north of us are being told one thing, and we are being led to believe something else, and that's creating disputes between us. We're getting in verbal disturbance with them. I'm sure they're good people. They bought property and want to do the right thing, and so do we. But I don't think that them creating their dream should destroy ours.
Thank you.
Thanks.
John Phillips?
Thank you. I'm John Phillips. I'm next door to Chad, 22294 Dunn Circle. Pretty much have the same story. I've been in my property for 23 years. Have never had any problems with neighbors at all up until recently. But we thought that 20-foot tree easement, and we were told that meant that was a tree easement. They couldn't do anything there. And then all of a sudden, the developer cleans it. There was right up in the corner across behind me, there was 3 red cedar trees, probably 8 to 10 foot tall. They're gone. So then we have neighbors that, as they were saying, one neighbor has built his fence over about 4 feet past the hedgerow. We have another neighbor who didn't build his fence over there, but they've decided to plant some trees and bushes over on that side. And the whole thing, I guess, boils down to there's going to be another set of upset people if that survey comes out to be in our favor, because they're going to have to move their fences, they're going to have to move their bushes or lose them, and they're not going to be happy. So by putting a tree preservation on that final plat and not having anything to back it up has created quite a problem. Not to mention, I didn't move out there. I'm like Chad, I didn't move out there to see houses. I knew someday it would be developed, but I've got them almost from here to the wall, the house from my back line. And I didn't move out there to have that. I didn't move out there to see that. So that's our problem. That's what we're upset about. And the city has not, we get comments of, well, when you get the survey back, and then we'll talk to this guy, and then we'll talk to that guy. By that time, we could have an entire hedgerow cut down. So we're not getting any help from the city at all. There's excuses. And I understand we have to go through channels, but there's got to be a way to stop it until we can get something final figured out.
Absolutely. Thank you. No, that's it.
So I'm sure you have some questions on it. One is, everybody's talking about 2017. It was actually, all this was I say way back, it was when the preliminary platting had taken place. The meetings that they were talking about, I read through the packet. And, there was comment on preserving area. Matter of fact, the residents wanted a walking trail, and at that time it didn't work through. There are measures that the residents can take. They could go to district court and ask for a injunction to stop everything, until the surveys are verified and all. Just a real quick recap is obviously the land surveyors develop the land survey, preliminary plat, final plat in phases, and then it's sent to the county. Meanwhile, the city engineer looks at it to make sure that stormwater drainage and everything infrastructure-wise that the city is supposed to look at. Then the county, I know Johnson County is really good about this, doing the verification of closure, and in this case, where there would be a plat and it shows unplatted property, there would be some more scrutiny about it. For the planning commission and council to agree on a tree preservation easement or a landscape easement of any sort, obviously if I would have been there, we would have had to have a discussion, that before that, because there's no definition for it. And without definition, it's unenforceable. So hopefully, and we've already started looking into, under the changes, that we'd make sure that whatever type of easement that the planning commission is happy with, then that would be in there and defined as well, along with the comp plan. So I was just a little, if there's no questions, and we'll be more than happy, and we are trying to work with them. It's just, we have property rights issues also with this. So, and really the whole key is first we need to find out whose property it is. If it really is the Dunn division, then obviously there won't be any problem in getting it stopped immediately. That's where a court of law comes into play. But then, then there'll have to be, then from there's a lot of discussions that have to take place. So.
Okay, you've had conversations with members of the group? Mr.
Yes, matter of fact, we met with Chad and John today.
Okay.
Mr. Hendershot and I did.
Okay.
Mr. Burton, preliminary plat you said was prior to 2017. Do you
I
have?
think it's 207, if I remember correctly. The very first preliminary plat was 207 or 205, something like that. Then there was a small change in preliminary plat in 2011 or 14? 15, I'm sorry, 2015.
Okay. I guess I'm just a little, because when the plats came through, unfortunately, I don't remember that far back. We didn't, was there discussion of, on the landscape plan, any of that 20-foot buffer?
Oh, yes, there was large discussion by the property owners and all in reading through the minutes.
Did any of it make the hit list when we made the motion?
Well, no,
Okay.
although there was a discussion and it was left on the preliminary plat. Now, and I thought about that, whether that was an error that it was left on, but there was a lot of discussion with all the property owners as far as trails. There was actually discussion about waterways. There was originally going to be a large detention basin down at the east end, east end, if the railroad was not going to allow that amount of water to flow on them and blah, blah, blah. And there was some railroad comment that, it's designed to carry that and all that. So, and then there was discussion written in there about the city actually owns a piece of property to the north of this. And there was discussion on whether the city should take over all the rest of this, and then the walking trails came into play, and so it was really kind of all over the place, but
Okay, so this is a walking trail, or is this part of?
no, it's a
somebody's
shadow.
personal- Oh. Okay, it doesn't look like a shadow.
Right, it's a shadow or a personal trail Maybe Chad can you take a look at that, Chad, if you don't
Because I was
mind?
wondering if somebody had already put in walking trails back there.
No.
That was,
Looks like a shadow to me, Chad.
Oh, this is my front yard, and it's a circle drive.
Oh, okay. Is that part of your drive?
Perfect.
Okay.
All the way to the back.
Sure.
perfect. Do you want these, sir? I was just confused on that, because I was like, is there some walking trails that have
No.
already been?
Is there any reason you guys would?
Probably.
Okay.
Okay, so
We
then
can
talked
place them in the
about-
minutes if you'd like, Chad. We can place them in the minutes if you'd like.
Sure.
Can the city, I'm just asking, because I don't know.
Sure.
Can the city put a stop work order, or does that have to go through the court system?
Right, the city has no grounds on putting a stop work order. If we had a definition for a tree preservation area, then yes, we would go to court.
I'm not even thinking about the tree preservation.
But
I'm
as
thinking
far
about
as-
the land dispute over a property line or something. You
No,
can't ask
because-
them to wait for
No,
results.
because we are not the record of keep, and we also are not the final check.
I understand that. I just didn't
I know, I'm just saying that's why.
Okay.
So if, there's a lot of states where the communities and all the county's not in charge, so there's not really, there's still county seats, but they're responsible for taking care of all their own plats, keeping them and recording them and all that within. In that case, we could say, hey, we have a mistake here, we gotta find out what the heck. And I did say, the city's more than happy, Mr. Hendershot, myself, everyone, we will go to the county if there is any type of discrepancy on this survey that comes back.
Do you know when Dunn Addition was annexed into the city?
It's not even in the city, that's the other problem. Is it is a county, unincorporated area. It was actually recorded plat in 76, I think.
Right.
74, no, it's recorded in 76 in accordance to the county. 72 or 74, it was being offered up at the county. I think isn't that what we read today?
Dunn Addition approved plat was
John.
72. Is what this says.
I understand what that says, but down on the recording, John actually
Right.
had a recorded copy, and
I saw that in the thing.
I think it was 70.
But it has still not been
70.
annexed, because I know that was a topic.
It'll say right in the corner. Sure, that's fine. Let me look real quick and I'll tell you the recording date on it. 1974 was the recording date. It was examined, the recording date filing with the county clerk is 1974. It is July 28th, 1974. Thank you. So. And you read into, or you read the subdivision regulations, it's really almost impossible to force our regulations onto adjoining properties that are not in the city. So one of the arguments, I know that, it's already been stated by the developer is, how can you tell us to put fencing up or screening or something like that up when that's not in the city? So you don't regulate any of that. And really, a lot of that buffering is designed for several subdivision to subdivision. And like I said, in this case, the city was not aware that was a recorded subdivision, because it says unplatted property.
But Victory is in the city.
Yes.
Yes, Village on Victory is in the city, that's correct. And you can see why we're trying to clean up all these patches in interior also. I ran across a little bit of a discrepancy a few days ago where there was a house not in the city, the house is in the city, and then there's a house that is not in the city again. And it was dealing with connecting to the sewer, so we have an annexation coming up, first meeting in, April. So anyway, April.
All right.
Anything else?
Mr. Burton?
Okay,
If you have anything else, just email me, and I, also wanna reach out to anyone, they can always email me and we can supply all the information that we can to them.
So, Mr. Burton, so the question I think that they're asking is there supposed to be a screening on the property side that's the city? In the
In
Village of
looking,
Victory,
in reading through it, there was most likely, they were looking and saying, hey, we don't want someone just to come in and doze down all the trees. I wasn't at the meeting and just trying to read into all this.
no, I understand.
But there's absolutely no way to enforce it. We have no tree preservation definition.
But there is an easement there, or there's not an easement there?
There's a tree preservation easement, that's correct.
But we don't have a definition of what that means.
That's correct.
Okay.
And really and when I met with Chad and John today, and one of them said, well, 2-inch, and I was hoping, honestly, that, they had found something in there that gave a definition on, but there isn't. So, in cleaning up trees and cutting down trees as well, I mean, preservation to one might be different to the other. We see it from administration to administration in the federal government. So,
I guess the question to me is, when the victory plots were approved, how far did they go? I mean, do they go to the fence line, or do they go to the tree line?
they
I
actually,
mean,
the plat shows, this will be fine. Actually, let me turn this on, and I'll show you what we have. Okay. Power? It looks like it has power on. Oh. I think he's working. Power? Document machine, there you go.
Sorry, thanks, Andrew.
Yep, you're right. So what this is, let me zoom down here and I'm gonna stop right there. So what the county records all indicate is you can see the yellow property line on the south side of the tree line. Now, that's not always exactly correct, but usually we see that they're within a couple of feet. And you can see the new houses, the 2 new houses, and then each one of those blue dashed lines, it looks like lines, it's actually numbers for lots that are built on by now. So you can see where the property line is shown.
Did the developer come in and take down more trees behind the existing homes on Village?
And not that I'm aware of.
So it's just happening down.
Well, no, that was all built back some time ago, those phases to the west. And yes, there were some trees removed, and the neighbors have cleaned and things like that. But actually just dozing everything out, no, I'm not aware of him ever doing that.
So it's just
Either developer.
So it's just come about in the new, further
East,
east.
that's correct, yes.
The power in Village of Victory, is there overhead power there, or is it all underground?
No, and another interesting comment that was made in reading through there is that there was a comment saying, well, in there by the previous developer, and I'm gonna kill all those hedge trees trenching down through there and all. So Kansas City Power and Light at the time, there is an additional 7.5 on the north side of those trees, a utility easement.
Yeah, I was curious about that, cause usually in these developments, they're running that utility at the very back lot line, so, which would go right through the buffer. So you have a 20-foot buffer that's undefined, then a 7.5 foot, so that's 27.5 feet from the back property line. How deep are these lots? Are they? Because I also see this as really, the guy gets in his dozer and starts going to town, and I bet you 90% of the time they don't know that there's a tree buffer right there.
154.
Yeah,
Well, they didn't doze down the trees.
right. But I mean,
One,
tree preservation, right? 20 feet isn't enough for a tree preservation because you have to stay outside of the drip line of a tree. A hedgerow,
that's correct.
you're gonna have, these things are all but 20 feet wide, then you can have a tree at the very end. Hedge apples 30 feet wide, so
Right.
you're getting into the drip line, you're gonna stress out the trees anyways, I mean.
150.
Just developing the land itself is gonna stress out the hedge line, putting in the utilities, so it's a sticky situation.
Right. Average is 150 deep.
Okay,
So they're quite a bit deeper than what we classify as the average at 120.
The other question I had heard from Mrs. George, and maybe I'm not hearing it correctly, but let's make sure, if that's her question or their question as Dunn residents, if there was to be anything that came before the Board of Zoning Appeals on property there, whether it's this situation or another, does the Dunn addition residents get notification on that?
Yes.
I think that was a question I was hearing that wasn't.
Well, I
answered.
think that the question was really, has there been anything?
Right, but if there had
And-
been, they would have gotten notification.
Yes, and I do understand but I also have to be very careful on core request here.
Oh, no, I'm just
You know,
saying,
where we just spit out information that's incorrect, and we wanna make sure that, and we wanna do that anyway, at all times, make sure that.
I just wanna make sure that they
Yes.
know, rather, since they're not city
On
limits or have
on
not.
any type of appeal or change in zoning, anything like that. Final plats, no.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burton.
Thank you.
That closes out our citizen participation, and we can go ahead and move into our formal commission. Get a motion to approve the minutes from March 4th.
So moved.
Second.
All right, start the voting on the left.
Aye.
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 That passes 6-0. All right, our next one is gonna be the rezoning application Z 000008-2021. This will be a public hearing, so if any of you that have not been in a public hearing before, we're gonna go ahead and open it up. If there's any commission, members who have had any ex parte, contact in terms of this case, they'll go ahead and let us know now. Okay. Mr. Burton, you want to go ahead and report?
Certainly, thank you. I really didn't get to say good evening last time, so what we have is a rezoning of number Z 8/20/21, rezoning from a C2 to an R1. The existing property has a C2 zoning. The site is a little over half an acre. It, C2 to the north and the west and the south and east are all R1 zoning classifications. A little bit of the background, Michelle Palmer had submitted a request to rezone this property that she recently bought from C2 to R1. Legal description is attached with it, and change of ownerships, market conditions, restructuring of the area. That's why the applicant, she purchased it. If you remember, this piece of property was one that went on the auction block, and it was purchased, and then she purchased it from who bought it on the auction block. Consistent with the regulations, The proposed rezoning is consistent with the intent of the regulations of R1 district. The proposed use of an R1 district is allowed in this area. And what I mean by allowed in this area, and we'll cover this a little again later on, but the comp plan calls out this area to be an R1. Neighborhood characteristics, it's surrounded by neighborhoods except to the west, and that would be the funeral home, Bruce's funeral home. Single families around the proposed zoning change would be compatible with it. I've had two conversations with Shirley Bruce Brown, yes, funeral director, owner, actually. There was a couple of comments, she doesn't mind it at all because she obviously is impacted by residents around the area anyway. It's not, there's high traffic, but they're able to contain most of the traffic within. What Shirley was concerned the most about is when her site plan was approved, it does show proposal of additional buildings that will be added. She was worried that, there could be protests on it and this and that, because actually one of the buildings is a crematorium. Which, that's probably what she would put an additional building, because obviously there's not much impact for parking with a crematorium. So I looked it up, I looked at the site plan, and sure enough, it does show proposed a small building and then a crematorium. I told her, it's on your proposed site plan. So if this person builds a house and the next person comes in and buys it and then starts, saying, hey, I don't want any more buildings and stuff like that, it's shown. So the city should be able to go back and easily show, hey, this was already planned and approved. Now we just have to make sure that there's the correct amount of landscaping, and there will have to be a few added parking spaces. So I wanted to bring that up, and just so that it's in the minutes and everything for Bruce's funeral home. As I said, the existing zoning is a C2, and there are mixed uses of commercial and residential around there. Stability for the current zoning, the site is currently zoned the C2 business district, and the surrounding areas, it's mostly, the largest amount of property is up against residential. And as I'd said before, the land use map does show residential use. The future land use map is in your packet. It's requested, it's really they looked at it, they thought they were buying a residentially zoned piece of property. So the gentleman that purchased the property had contacted the city, and then it's my understanding that Mrs. Palmer contacted the city, and she was notified that, hey, it does look like it's an R1 use. Now, in talking to the person that was giving the information, and they said, well, we were looking at the map, well, it's a future land use map. So she bought the property, and how it got discovered by her is submitted some information, and obviously I turned it down because it's improper use in zoning. So here we are because of that today. Yes, the current property, the stability of the parcel and the restrictions for the current property, as I just said, she cannot build a house on a C2, so that's why the zoning is coming around. Detrimental effect of the neighborhood. We do not see any detrimental effect to the neighborhood, especially since it is in the future land use plan. But I would like to take this time right now to read an email that the city did receive, because it also falls into the detrimental effect. Is that okay? Okay, so this is from Allie Hatfield. And she says, Dear Mr. Burton, I am writing today as I am unable to attend the public hearing on April 1st at 7 p.m. However, I would like to give my comments about the rezoning from C2 to R1, the address being shown as 217 and Webster Street. We would prefer the property stay a commercial lot. I worry about the safety on Race when the funeral home opens back up after COVID. And sadly, when they have business, most of the time, there's not enough parking in their lot. Cars park along 217th Street and Race at 217th Street and park on Race Street. If a home is to be placed in this lot, it takes away from people parking on 217th Street, and more people are going to be parking on Race. As a mother of little ones, I worry about how that extra traffic on Race will impact the safety when playing outside. Spring Hill does have many empty commercial lots, Spring Hill does not have many empty commercial lots in town, especially off of Webster. Taking this away means even less availability when Spring Hill residents want more business in town. We know this because O'Reilly's blew their expectation numbers out of the water the first month. The food truck that just parked across at the bank are highly popular, and there seems to be a new food truck constantly being in business in this town here. I would be surprised if we don't throw a parade when Quick Trip opens. Spring Hill's a rapidly growing, but we have a hard time keeping many demands for more businesses. We need to allow if we allow one person to buy the commercial property, flip the zoning, then this will lead to more people doing so as well. Eventually, we will have no more commercial properties within the city limits. The appeal of a small town like Spring Hill is having businesses your family can quickly drive to or even walk to. There are a ton of zoned residential lots all over this town. Let's not take away one of the few commercial lots that are available in the heart of the city. And then she signed, thank you for your time. So that's what we received. Then there is no correction of an error. It's the C2 zoning has been since the late 1990s when they did a lot of zoning right after the first revision of the comp plan. Utilities and all are adequately available. The future land use for the public gain and a hardship for the landowner, it was purchased in one air by maybe staff saying this, but also the future land use map does show it. So, and then conformity with the comp plan, I've been over that. It does conform to the comp plan as an R1 use. Staff recommends the actions that you'll be able to take is approve it. It would go to the 22nd of the governing body. Deny it, that would still go to the 22nd, and then we would notify the applicant, or continuance it for a future meeting, and we'd have to notify the applicant. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning, if nothing else, because it's addressed under the comp plan.
Thank you, Mr. Burton.
You're welcome.
Looking at the report and all the pictures that you have in here, we're talking about the sliver of land behind or kind of east of the funeral home and west of those existing homes,
That's
correct?
correct.
How large is that property again?
0.6.
A little under a half acre, or a little over a half acre,
Okay.
0.6.
Could you even build a commercial property on there with
It's-
parking?
It's narrow and long.
Oh, I mean, I always hate to say no, because I've seen some crazy things.
Some very creative ways of doing things, I understand.
Creative
I mean,
building.
it seems very small to do a commercial property with. But I'm just,
Right,
Looking at it-
probably the best use would have been if the funeral home bought it.
right,
But in talking with, Miss Bruce Shirley, she, they're just not, the business isn't there to just expand great big and all that, and there's still a family ran, funeral home, so. Just wasn't, it's not a worthwhile venture.
Are there other properties that are C2 on Webster that are vacant?
Yes.
Oh, sure.
The property directly across the street to the north,
Yes.
it says on here that it's rural, or it's residential.
Mm-hmm.
But isn't there a piece of that or a part of that that is commercial?
Not the new piece. That was split off right behind Dollar General and all, and behind O'Reilly. And that is run as a residential piece.
'Cause
Matter of
I-
fact, I was just talking to a developer that was looking at that and putting in, possibly, like assisted living type houses or maintenance provided type.
Cause I drove down by there today and thought that the for sale sign over there said commercial property.
Yeah, they probably did put it on there.
But they can do whatever.
Well, I mean, they can come in and ask for reasons.
But I'm just saying, I'm just
Sure,
questioning
and-
because of what I thought I saw.
Right, sure.
We're talking about north of 217th?
yes.
Isn't
Yes.
that all commercial all the way to Bronco Boulevard?
Well, there's, let me look.
I'm just basing it off the mapping.
And until I drove by there today, that's what I thought.
No, there's actually another sliver that's you're talking about. You can't see it on this because we don't have the parcels divided out. But there's another sliver. But yes, the commercial does go deeper than what this commercial
Okay.
on the south side goes, yes.
Then come to the south side of the community center. How far does the city have community center property there? Not very far, correct?
That's correct.
And so then from the community center back line to 17th, is that zoned residential or is that zoned commercial? Do you remember?
Some of it is zoned still rural residential. That's, school property. A lot of it is.
That was my next question.
That's correct.
So that's school property, so
A lot of it.
that goes up to that Bronco Boulevard.
That's correct. That's why.
Okay.
Where is I know that the Bruce Funeral Home was talking about there was other buildings they wanted to put. Where are those other buildings located on their plot? Are they gonna be right on the property, near the property line?
One of them is placed towards the east. I think it showed 10 foot off. That was a crematorium. And that's really the only building that they're even considering doing. And at this point, she said that right now it's just not profitable for them to build that structure and operate it. Maybe as we grow and get older.
This goes to residential. Is it going to kick in? Getting back into our last discussion here, is screening a buffer along that funeral north end.
Sure. They had already started, the funeral home had. And, she's well aware that if she wants screening there, she's gonna have to put screening there.
Okay.
And the property owner of this, has already cleared out most of it, yes.
Okay.
And that's something also that when we look at commercial and we say, and Shirley actually brought this up, she said, we looked at this, but we can't count on something being on somebody else's property. So they had actually already started. As a matter of fact, she talked about building a fence, talked about building a fence for like several thousand or putting in shrubbery and all, and I believe they're going with the natural landscape, bushes and all. I didn't see you there. How are you? Good.
Okay. Do you have any other questions for Ms. Burton? Did the
I,
applicant want?
I assume the owners won't come back to us when they're not able to sell that property. Resell it,
I don't understand what you're saying.
because there's commercial across, and there may be commercial across the street.
We have a building permit application in right now for a single family resident.
Yeah.
That's why this came about.
Okay.
But it's single family all around to the east, you know. But I do see your point, but we do have an application and that's how it got caught, so.
And I understand the concern the patron had that emailed you, Mr. Burton, because I agree, I'm very passionate about activating Webster, making a commercial corridor. But then again, you know, I do this stuff day in and day out, and half an acre lot, essentially, is really tough to
It is.
develop commercially when you're talking about,
And-
they would have to include the buffer on their property in
Right.
addition to parking, ADA stalls, depending on the use and
Right.
service.
So I really did think about this and thought, okay, you know, these drive-up coffee shops, but it's too far back.
I mean, like a scooters is about as small as I think you can
Right.
get, and I still think that might be still a little large for that.
Yes, and so anyway, I looked at some of them, there's some neat concepts that are out there right now, and almost all of them were at 0.72 and larger.
And I thought about that as well, but my other thought went back to, I kept getting pulled back more to, and some of the new ones may have not set in on some of that discussion, but when we were looking at Webster Street and how, like you spoke of before, we have donut holes with not being zoned and being zoned into the city limits. And
Annexed.
It, yeah. It, when you look at Webster Street and they're wanting to make all of Webster Street eventually go commercial, but are we creating the same type of a problem? Are we creating what we already have that we're fighting on Webster Street? Was we have a residential, now we have a commercial, and we have a commercial, and now we have a residential and a residential, and now we have commercial, and we have commercial on this side, and then we have a residential. That's why I was questioning what that is across the street down to Bronco Boulevard. Because starting at Bronco Boulevard, you still have some empty green space, and the road to the east of Bruce's, to the east of this residential request, then that's where all that other residential starts. So it seems like we have a really nice little, this is a commercial area right here. Do we want to open ourselves, and I understand what you're saying about the lot size, but do we want to open ourselves back up and have, for a board in 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, answering questions like what we're trying to answer with Webster Street?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean,
And
it's hard to develop an activated corridor when you're taking away the zoning.
it's also hard to try and defend that your future land use map
I understand
agrees
that,
with this, and
but
I am not all, you know that, I don't even like future land use maps, because you
but
take a
I-
look at it, but in this case, on residential being so close to it already,
I
I
understand,
don't
but
know.
my problem with, and I know the future land use map is a working document, and I also understand that for several years, we have been talking about getting all of that updated, and we haven't been able to get there.
I have a discussion item for that, so.
But I'm just saying, have we, knowing what we know and what we're trying to do on Webster Street, or what we're wanting to do with Victory, or what we're wanting to do with 207th or Woodland, would we have already changed that had we been able to move forward with the comprehensive plan and the future land use map? I don't know. I don't have the crystal ball. I'm just that's where I'm questioning, because we have sat and fought that so much on a couple of those corridor roads. Is this, I mean, I'm just asking you to be thoughtful of what we have to deal with today and in the next year or 2 years versus leaving what to a board in 10 years or 20 years.
Mr. Burton, I know it's 0.6 acres, but how wide is it? So, let me clarify.
With the-
To the east, it's residential, correct?
That's,
And to the south, it's residential.
Correct.
that's correct.
Okay, so how many feet are we talking about east to west, and how many feet are we talking about north to south?
I can look at the,
For 0.6 of an acre?
It's definitely narrow.
what's that?
I said, I think it's definitely narrow.
Oh, it is, but I'll tell you exactly what it is.
Is that little sliver right there? Is there another little line right there? Or am I just imagining a little line
Oh, I see it, yeah. It's little.
there? If that's a line, it's. Do you see that line?
What,
The little line right there?
yeah,
I think that looks to me like that's the property we're talking about, not where the arrow is, but where,
No, it's, the arrow's in the wrong place.
yeah. See where it's not even,
here.
it's barely as wide as your thumbnail.
right, I see
On this
that.
one.
But the entrance to this property is here.
No,
This is,
no.
right?
oh, this is
207
Webster, sorry.
Oh,
This is
sorry.
217.
Oh, where's, you're right.
well, yeah, cause I saw
Okay.
like, tried.
Where
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
where is Bruce's?
Yeah,
Right here.
This is Bruce's.
No, Bruce is
funeral
right here.
home's right here.
This is Bruce's?
Yeah.
And then and we're talking about this little sliver right here to the
Yes.
east of it.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm just trying to figure out how many feet wide we're
It's
talking about.
narrow. When I drove by it, I was like, wow, that's narrow.
So I understand what you're talking about, there
Yes.
being commercial across the street, but
No, I'm meaning this
yeah,
way. Where's the school?
the school's up here.
So it's the cross,
It's all the blue.
I'm so twisted on this map. I hate maps.
North
Well,
is up.
here's the bank, right here.
So yeah, so here's the bank. And then this is the community center. This,
Well, the community center's right here.
Forgot
Right at the end of
it's
this-
Miami County.
There's the community center
yeah,
up here.
so all of that then looks like it's,
I'm sorry, I was looking on Johnson County and it's in Miami.
Yeah, it's.
I'll have it here in just a second.
Okay, that's fine, we're just discussing, so,
because from here is where your residential street comes
Correct.
through.
coming from this side.
Yeah, and then this has like a for sale sign for commercial, but I'm thinking all of this would wind up wherever that goes to that Bronco Boulevard.
No, this is Bronco Boulevard.
Well, it seems like it should be further
Okay,
down.
Oh,
But, so then you've got this narrow piece of buffer, green buffer, and then the houses start.
But isn't that owned by the school district?
That, I think, a piece of it is not.
Okay.
I think Lynn Baker owns it.
That's correct. You are correct about that.
So the portion along 217th Street around the curve there,
This-
east of Bronco Boulevard,
Yeah. And then,
but it's zoned residential currently.
that's what I was questioning. I mean, and I know a real estate agent can put what they want on their sign, it doesn't
Oh, I
have to be
know.
accurate, but I thought that the sign said,
Okay. So parcels.
but again, I don't,
I'm just trying to get a feel for what exactly, because this map doesn't tell us.
no, it doesn't. And you're right about that little sliver. And
No,
depending
it's
on-
just.
Cause we have a,
Yeah, this little.
we have a minimum lot width for commercial, right?
Yeah.
I believe. Do we know what that is off the top of our head?
It's in my book right there.
Cause I'm guessing it's all
Okay.
the minimum.
I'm curious, does it even meet the minimum?
Not a lot there.
Okay.
No, there's really not.
Just wonder if we're fighting over something that's not really.
Right there.
Yeah.
And it abuts rear residential.
No, it's gotta be, see, it's right here. It's right here on this corner. That's what you're looking at.
There we go.
Yeah, that's it.
It's 100,
I don't know why you don't know this. And 260.
Yeah.
It's
101 wide.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
101,
Wide,
Yeah.
yes,
and how deep?
260.
I mean, cars going to the garage. I sure so.
Right, exactly. Especially like
Is
after
that a
school,
right amount?
Yeah.
and all them kids.
Yeah. Yep.
Actually, call it out just a little larger than
0.6.
101. can, okay, so. Of the lot. Lot size in a C2, it does not specify that it is a requirement, but your side yard setback is a minimum 25 foot on each side.
Is that from the building or from or from alleyways or?
Property line.
But I mean, can they put it like a driveway in within the 20 feet, or is it?
Yeah, you're allowed to use a little bit of that. I think there's 10 foot of it that you're allowed to use, just like O'Reilly's did and all. But your building setback line
It's 25
is
feet.
25 foot each direction.
20 foot.
25. Minimum side yard setback, 25 foot.
I heard you say
50,
20.
so
I
that
wrote
leaves
20.
61 feet.
I'm sorry, I was saying,
No,
I did say
40,
20.
51 feet.
51.
51 feet wide for a
51
building,
foot
commercial
wide.
building.
That's correct. It's a large piece of property for a single-family residential lot.
It has a lot of backyard.
About a lot of backyard, that's correct. I mean,
'Cause
we
front-
have all kinds of 80s and all, and this is about the average of what they call the estate lots out of Dayton Creek. You know, as an average on size for acreage and all. But commercial-wise, it is fairly small. Usually you know, 1 acre is the minimum size that I see anyway, usually in commercial. The other thing that I did look at this also, and typically commercial anymore, no matter what you even do, you try and have 2 entrances. And then that really makes the building smaller as well, because you know, you wouldn't be able to take and have 1 entrance and be able to occupy 50 cars. It's just not allowable in commercial. You'd have to have 2 entrances at that time. And then 100 foot, it's pretty tough to get 2 entrances, you know, because they're so darn close to proximity. Matter of fact, the code does not even allow it that close proximity in 103 foot, so. Take a 25 and a 25 and, you know, there you are back to a 60 foot, 50 foot,
51 feet.
51 feet, 52 foot, that's correct. Oh, I was gonna look that up too. Real quick, I was gonna tell you what that was. So what I was gonna try and find for you directly across from it,
Pat, would they have to,
looks like that's all school owned.
there's a chance too, they'd have to detain stormwater on site as well, right? Being
For-
commercial.
For commercial, definitely.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Right.
you have,
And that was
you
one
have
of,
to account for stormwater. Yeah.
that was actually one of Dan Miller's comments. Try not to put all the engineer's comments in it, but Dan, you know, he has to work with what he has to work with, but
Right.
he said, you know, this is definitely one that, you know, it would be tough because if nothing else, the release on it.
Yeah.
Because he said to the south and you have to release it, and he said, you know, those residents are gonna be upset.
Do you know, well, not just that too, but remember, you have parking lot lighting too. If it's a public parking lot, you have parking lot, lighting, so you're gonna pull 30 feet in the air there. Do we know generally what that topography is doing? Is it sloping away from north to south or south to north?
This flows from north to south.
Okay, well, that's
It's
good.
pretty flat.
Yeah, that's good for them.
And it is pretty flat, it is, but,
I mean,
but overall, the detention water would have to go to the south.
Yeah.
Is what Dan had shown, or had said. And I really, honestly, I appreciate the comments from residents and things like that and all. You always know that they're hoping that it just stays an empty lot. as it's zoned right now, and this is no joke, we have a used car dealership, a very nice one that's looking around. And I thought, if that dealership was to come in here, and if you think about it, a small used car dealership might work on there. But can you imagine the impact it would be to the residents? I mean, it would be a huge impact. If nothing else, they're gonna say, well, good lands, every criminal in the world is gonna come try and steal a car, and, it just goes on and on and on. And some people just don't think about that.
Then you have all hard surface.
Yeah,
More
that's
pollution
all
with water.
impervious
I was gonna
surface.
say there's a lot more disturbing.
So,
Public hearing.
so we have, or I try and look and say, there could be worse things on this that could really, really impact us.
Well, I appreciate your comments about not shrinking down our commercial. I'm just not sure that we're actually shrinking down a commercial.
No, I try to play that double
Sure.
sword.
No,
and
I
we've got to
absolutely.
always remember to look at the other side of some of
Yes.
these things.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Because if you close the
I-
public hearing, I'm ready for a motion.
Yeah.
Well,
I was gonna say, did the applicant wanna speak?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry, I left it.
Amy says, I'm used to it.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and I just bought this property May of 2020, and I've worked in Paola for 21 years. So, and I always had the dream to live in Spring Hill, and I'm a single person. My kids are grown. I don't have a bunch of traffic that's going to be happening there. And the property, even though when I first seen it, because it wasn't my original property I looked at, it was completely covered with these trees that had weird trees growing out of other trees and poison ivy completely all over. I've spent a lot of money trying to kill all that. And I had, there were some trees that were rotted out, so they had all these ants and stuff. And anyway, so I've been out there trying to make improvements to the property, and I continue to do that. I just want to be able to. I had my house plan and everything, and then when the appraiser said, "Well, I have to appraise the land too," he said, "Well, I can't appraise I can't appraise something that's commercial to be residential." So all my house plans and everything just got put on the back burner, so now I have to start all over, and I just hope that you consider changing this to residential for me. I'll do my best. I'm a quiet person too, and I already talked to Mrs. Bruce about, when I was having these really ugly trees removed, because they were like leaning all different ways, and some of them were like elms that were dead. But my plans are to have screening put up, like fence, and I'd like to put trees too, just pretty trees, So, and as far as the parking goes for the funeral home, since I've been there, since I've owned that property, I've never seen cars park along there, but if it comes to that, it's fine. As long as I can pull in my driveway, I'm fine with however much traffic they have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think we have anybody here to speak on this besides her, so I can go ahead and close out the public hearing.
I move that we recommend approval for Z 08-2021 from commercial to residential.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for application Z 000008-2021 as presented by staff. Start the voting on the left.
Aye.
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 Motion passes 6-0. All right, that closes out our formal commission and we're going to the discussion, site conception, concept, Monarch Cement. Mr. Burton.
Thank you. So, I'll just go ahead and put mine under here and, take a look at it there. There we go. So you can see Webster Street and, I don't know if this thing will point well enough. Anyway, you see Webster Street, if you're looking at this on the left-hand side, that is the new Webster Street, going in. 183rd is right up there at the top, which that's direction is north. New Webster's put in, the Webster Street is, what, a quarter mile back off of the highway there. And off of that is the storage units and all on down. So that just gives you some general location. So what this is a concrete company. There's two different operations to this concrete company. One on towards Webster Street, as you see two entrances, one off of Webster and one onto 183rd or off 183rd, either direction. That portion there in the dark gray is the actual manufacturing of cement or concrete, the manufacturing of concrete. The one on the right-hand side or to the east of that, as you see a couple of silos there and a darker area there, that's actually the transportation and delivery and holding of the cement part of it. This cement is coming from the Pittsburgh area. It's cement. A lot of people don't realize cement. It takes a lot of carbons to make cement. It's one of the biggest polluting factors in the world. The cement that they're going to start producing is more of a limestone-based cement that does not utilize all the carbons in the grinding and all that. And then they're even working on the process of introducing the carbons back into the cement. So they're getting a state-of-the-art type of cement manufacturing getting started. The reason that they wanted to come up in this area is they would like to kill a couple of 3 or 4 birds with one throw. One, the manufacturing of concrete. It's a market that is way underserved. We can tell you every day that people don't get concrete if they have to wait hours and hours. The other is in the delivering of this cement part of it, it's going to be put into a state spec. And this is pretty much in the center of everywhere. You know, it's fairly easy to get everywhere from this whole region. And also, they see and have seen several designs where, you know, someday, shortly, 7's going to have to be improved, or 169. And there's an awful lot more progress in that direction now. So I wanted to bring it to you what they're looking at. If we take the concrete manufacturing side on the left, is the empty trucks would come in on Webster, and this will say one way only, but it's going to be one way only for trucks. They will have approximately 50 people that work here. The red is a building, if I remember correctly on that. That's aggregate. They're going to have a building here also. I guess, oh,
Blowing it
well, the
out.
shop, but a portion of, I guess, the shop building is gonna be office. And then overall, though, they'll have about 30 to 50 employees that work at this facility. They've already gone through the KDOT environmental study on it, for washout and all that. That center portion that divides the two, that's a state-of-the-art washout facility and reclamation of water and everything else, chemicals, everything. So I wanted to bring it to you. So back to my other comment, as I go to the other side of the room here in a minute. All over the place tonight. Come in empty on Webster, go out full on 183rd. Come in off 183rd on the cement side, full and empty. Now, it does not represent any turn lanes and all yet. This is just a concept plan that trying to get ahead of everything. And to be real honest with you, we're just slammed. So we're trying to get everything we can as fast as we can up front for comments and all. Engineering slammed everybody. And I wanted to bring this to you guys, so maybe you can, look at it a little bit and also see if there was any immediate comments from you.
Is this gonna be a 24-hour operation?
No. Well, not their side. So, and we did talk about that, and they are agreeable to making sure that it is closed down at around the 8 o'clock mark. The reason I said not on their side, there'll be contract trucks that come in and pick up cement and leave with it, to take to different plants or things like that. One of their biggest right now is these temporary concrete plants that are being installed to redo roads mostly, highways. So no, they had not planned on it, and that's one thing that we can do a stipulation on.
How much dust would it create?
Okay, I say absolutely none, but there is a little dust. But this, this facility is going to be state of the art with vacuums and all that. And like I said, before they even approached us, they already have everything through the EPA.
I just wanna make sure, if it's super windy that day,
Right.
my whole house isn't just gonna be covered.
That's right. No,
That's-
I agree.
So is this a impermeable surface, or is it gravel? What are we looking at?
You're looking at the dark gray is all concrete. The lighter gray to the bottom is gravel. Couple of reasons for that. Now, obviously, they're a concrete company, and they've said that okay, if we have to do that, the stormwater management part of it. This is actually on this area up here. They did a area-wide stormwater detention area, and I'm working with right now on the west side of Webster to form another area-wide detention instead of having all these detentions everywhere. So this is already covered detention-wise downstream, but anything to help get rid of some of the stormwater before it has to be sent. And really, a lot of people aren't thinking about this. It's getting dry because we're catching stormwater. We need to get this water back in the ground. Now, this is my little soapbox for a little bit, but it really is. It's drying up a lot of the underground water because we're running it down to one place, shuffling it over somewhere else, and sending it to the Mississippi. And we see no benefit from rains a lot of times. So Not saying that, and they said, hey, if we have to put concrete down everywhere, we don't like, they are very environmentally conscious. Because that's why they're doing this limestone-based, cement.
I mean, so do they just wanna do gravel everywhere, or are we making them?
No, because, coming in and leaving with heavy trucks and all that, it'd just be a nightmare. So just the lighter portion there is what they're looking at for gravel.
Okay.
Where some aggregate bins and things like that are. They realize that there's improvements to be made on 183rd. Like I said, they're working on a traffic study right now to get all that worked out and what all will have to take place on 183rd. We're already in contact with KDOT on it. They're already looking. But as far as a planning perspective, if we just didn't want to come up here and, if you see any red flags, if you guys just let us know, we'll try and work on it. And I have not got to study it real well yet. So
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
you bet.
All right, that takes us into our reports. Mr. Burton?
Yes, a few. The items that were sent to council passed. But the most important, final plat passed, and that was on the March 11th. The 25th, we did not, March 25th, there was nothing for the council from the planning commission. So a couple of things, we'll send it out Monday to you. I was going to bring you, I wrote up a scope of everything for the comp plan, detailed on what I thought during the discussions of what we should focus on and what areas and things like that. I'll get that to you. I forgot to bring it tonight, forgot to print it off. I have already started on that. Right when we started this year, I contacted, and it was too late to get any firms. So what I would like to do, the money will be available next year also. I want to go ahead and get started on everything. I'm going to get the RFP to you guys, and I want to get it out summerish to get the ball rolling so that these firms can plan, bid it, plan it to be here, and work with us on that. We've already talked about that we don't want to spend a whole lot of money on firms. So in the scope, I've put on there, planning commission staff or something like that. So I'll get that to you. Other than that, we have Quick Trip's getting ready to start now. And we have lots of subdivisions.
Excuse me, I have to,
Yes, ma'am. No?
I need it at home.
Yes. Have a good night. Thank you for coming. And just send me, yes, you too, send me anything that you need to. So, on that plan, and then we have back-to-back subdivisions getting ready to come in, as well as site plans on different, things. Monarch's one, we have, and then, I don't know if anyone has told you or if you are aware that the city of Olathe did file and did receive a restraining order on the city of Spring Hill. So the discussion on Project Extract, there's still discussions and all, but as this point right now, we're under restraining order that we cannot take any more action to annex that ground. As more details come available, I'll let you know. And, hopefully we can get a court hearing. Some of them are saying it might be a year, which I just don't understand it, but I guess I don't understand a lot anymore. So just so you know, that's where we're at on that. Anything else? I have nothing else.
Okay. I don't have anything else. Do you have any announcements for anybody on the board? Nope. Get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Adjourn?
Second.
Check. So the voting on the left?
Oh, sorry, aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.